All right, folks, welcome to the Utah Microservices meetup for November 17, 2022. Big thanks again to LiveView Technologies for hosting us. And so we are going to give a couple of minutes to Nadeem to share some LVT related stuff.
Well, thank you, Ethan, and welcome everybody. We're glad to have you all here. A little bit about LVT. What do we do? So the LVT provides a user-friendly enterprise-grade safety ecosystem that can quickly deploy, secure any physical environment. And we have a quick video that we can share with you guys. Let's see. Thank you. That was our kind of introduction, and it's a great place to work. If you are interested, please go to lvt.com and career and find out our open positions. Thank you, Ethan.
Thanks, Nadeem. And I imagine too, you are on meetup.com. People could message you there as well.
Yes.
If they're interested.
Yes.
Okay.
You can message me or message any of the members here. We have all the LVT crew here. I will be happy to connect you with the right people.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Thank you.
All right. So let's see. This week, month, November. I'm going to share my screen. I'll figure this out. Here we go.
I need to stop first.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, wait.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me find the actual. So we're going to talk about snapshotting. I'm not going to assume that everybody knows what snapshotting is, so we'll talk about what it is. I don't have as many slides prepared as I would have liked. Life happens. But what kind of sparked doing this time was the commentary that Aaron Jensen made in the last time, where he pointed out that if there was some data on our entity class in the composite component, it was in the device video. Both components had this issue where the attributes were declared in a certain way, and he said, oh, those won't be picked up by snapshots. And so that was really interesting to me. I was like, oh, I want to dive into that and understand it. And so this is probably all reruns for you all, because of course you've been tuning into the stream every day from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But this will be the distilled version of that.
Talking about Ethan Garfolo?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Upwards of like 1.7 people come per day to that stream, so he's a big influencer. So anyway, to understand snapshotting, it's worth reviewing what projections are. Projections, of course, is when you attribute to other people the fundamental flaws that you have in yourself. Different kind of projection. So here's our problem. In an event source system, I'll actually start the slideshow here. And of course, the Zoom controls are in the way. There we go. So we store these lists of append-only logs of immutable events. But the problem is I want to know what the bank account balance is right now. And so projection isn't that different from the sort of traditional client-server architecture you're used to. Let's go back to traditional MVC where we have some sort of a web server some sort of an accounts table that has an ID and a balance, and then you post there to open your account, then maybe you post a deposit, and then a withdrawal, until finally you post another deposit. All right, so you're getting these stimuli, these requests from the outside world, and you are updating state somewhere as a result of it. By the way, if your bank does it this way, get a new bank. Because that's not how you store things in the financial world, for sure. So what we're doing with event sourcing is, instead of saving those results of what happened, as Scott, he phrased it to me one time, it's like there's these levels of enlightenment we go through. Instead of storing the result of what happened, we can store what happened. Because if we store what happened, we can get back to the result of what happened. And so that's what projection is. Projection is the process through which we can take these events and arrive at the current state of things. And the way that that works, I mean, we still want to know what the current balance is. And the way that that would work is we know, like, the thing that we want to get into the current state. We know what that would look like if there were no events. We define that. And so that's an example of an account that has not had any events yet. And so the way we project it is we take that starting point, we take the first event, and we apply that first event to the entity, as we call it. So on the open, we give it an ID. When we deposit money, then we are going to add the amount of the deposit to the entity and record the sequence number, which we're not going to get into the sequence number here today, but that is a thing if you look at the Eventide account component example. If we have a withdrawal, we are going to subtract the balance from the entity. And then when we have that final deposit, which you'll notice I didn't put a sequence on there, that has no meaning other than that I just missed that one. We arrive at the current balance of the account. So if you wanted to have a system where you don't allow overdrafting, boom, you've got the current balance of the account right at that point. You know, would I allow this withdrawal that you're trying to do? Because of the rules of the way the components operate, no one else is allowed to come in and pull the carpet out from under you. You can have safety that you can have things up to date when you're making decisions. Any questions about that? I mean, I think most people in here are fairly familiar with this concept. So what's snapshotting then? And I'm out of slides. So just imagine the beautiful slide that could have been up there. With a bank account, I could just, there we go. Yeah, we had a zoom control up on the screen here that was blocking part of the screen. Especially with this account example, this is a model where you could imagine that stream getting quite long. So if you've had your bank account open for 20 years, let's say, how many withdrawals and deposits have happened during the course of that 20 years? Well, it could be thousands, could be tens of thousands of them. And when we do the projection, we typically do all of that work of projecting and then throw it away. It'll remain, in Eventide at least, it remains resident in memory until the next time the component restarts. But if the component restarts due to a deployment, a crash, whatever, truck hitting the air conditioner outside the data center and destroying it, and servers overheat, we pitch that. And so a lot of folks, myself included, when first exposed to event sourcing, well, gosh, that's so inefficient. We do all that processing and then we pitch it. It's a fair thing to say. In practice, most streams don't get so big where that's a big deal, but an account is one. That one could go on for a long time. So what snapshotting is saying, well, why don't we save that projection? Because there's a few rules that we follow with these events. Anyone know what they are? Like, what are some things you cannot do with an event in an event source system?
I'm looking at SwapNut for the answer on this.
You cannot go back and change the event.
Right. You can't edit an event. Exactly. And
I I was joking, but she got it.
yeah.
That was awesome.
Can't delete it either.
What was that, Casey?
Can't delete them, I think.
Can't delete them.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
don't get rid of them.
We can't change them. We can't delete them. which means that, well, let me ask you this. There are, what do they say? There's two hard problems in computer science, naming things, caching, and counting. Yeah, right. Haha. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah. Caching is a hard thing to do because it's hard to know when you should invalidate the cache. But if you're caching something that can't change, is that a hard caching problem? No. You just make copies of it, and that's really easy to do. And so with these projection results, we don't delete them, we don't change them. We can save the result because this is only 4 events. I really wanted to have a bigger visual to really hit home here. We normally start at the very beginning and walk through them all. If I had, say, saved that one, and then we wanted to project that one, is there any difference between starting from the 3rd one and adding the 4th versus starting at the beginning?
Computing.
Computing time, yeah, that would be the only one. In fact, if we did start at the beginning, we have to arrive there again anyway before we can do the next one. So snapshotting is all about taking that and persisting it so that we are not duplicating all that processing. Now, there is one really important thing out of that. We do have, of course, we don't change the events, we don't delete them. But also there is a particular projection we're running the events through. So if any one of those changed, the snapshot wouldn't be valid. So like in the account component, there's a projection class that projects the account stream. If you edited that class, that would invalidate a snapshot that you have potentially. So heads up about that. Any questions about what snapshotting is?
So snapshot is entry in the database. Can you delete that snapshot?
You can, yeah, because it, like the view data, is derived from the events.
Okay.
And in Eventide, they are stored right back in the message store by default. That's what we'll see, but they don't have to be. We'll look at the code that does that and talk about that. But yeah, they are, it's a performance improvement. It's a caching mechanism. You'll get the right answer if you start at the beginning and go through 10 million. It'll just take time, saves you some time.
Would it make sense to want to ever, for whatever reason, automate regular snapshots? Or is that a crazy?
We'll talk about the mechanism for it and how it actually works, because Eventide comes baked in with the ability to enable them. The reasons not to do that, storage space, there is a little bit of extra code that you have to write. You do have to track to make sure, like if you ever change your projection, you would have to clear out the old snapshot somehow, and so that you don't, right? Because it's not just the data, it's how you interpret the data is part of what the snapshot
I imagine
is.
there might be logic behind when and why you would want to take snapshots as well.
Oh,
Just a straight up automation maybe is overkill, but
Yeah,
It's pretty
I was wondering about the mechanism of it. Can you
Yeah.
adjust it and say, only snapshot if you can?
you can.
Is it configurable
It
basically?
is configurable. Yeah, let's look at the example code for that. So,
Ethan,
yeah.
I was wondering if it was worth mentioning that, like, by default, the entity store will store the projection in RAM. At that, the snapshotting only really is coming into effect when you're like taking the component down and then bringing it back up to have it also resumed. Does that make sense? Sorry, I'm driving.
Yeah, no, that's, we can take it from there so that you can still focus on driving, but Casey is absolutely right. So as a matter of course, while the component is running, it spins up, you want to fetch account 1, 2, 3, it projects it, it remembers that in memory. And until the component restarts, and it could restart because it runs out of memory and crashes and restarts, like that's valid. So when that millionth and one event comes in and it needs to now reproject that event, it starts from having projected a million of them because it is still in memory. The persistent snapshotting is what we're going to talk about, and then what Aaron pointed out in the last one. That's where we then take the one in memory and actually persist it to disk somewhere or some other thing that will keep it around even if the component restarts. So yeah, it does happen in memory automatically. Like I don't know how you can prevent it from happening in memory. That's not configurable, but the persisting one, yes, there is some configuration involved with that. So the trick to it, you guys, are you all ready to see just your mind's blown by how much
Came here
code?
ready for that.
Okay.
Even wizardry last week or last month was pretty impressive. I'll say.
I think it's in here. No. Wait, oh, here we go. It's the one right below there. It says snapshotting. If we go to snapshotting and the documentation, there's a bunch of stuff you can read. One second. We have someone named Gabe. I think he's legit. Let me just check real quick. Steve, I don't know if you know this, but we got Zoom bombed a couple of times ago. And so we take security seriously. Let's check the attendees real quick. Gabriel Gunderson, I'm guessing he's legit.
I know.
Was it good? All right, yeah,
Say
cool.
in the flesh right there.
Joining, okay, sorry, it was not pleasant. It's left the mark on me. When he's able to join, we can talk to him.
So Ethan, what you're saying is that memory got permanently snapshotted.
That's what we are going to look at how to, oh, yes. Yeah, sorry, I went right. Yes, that is persistent from there.
I'm like, why Ethan is seriously answering?
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Wipe that memory.
See how much it affected me? I can't even joke about it. This isn't quite, no, this is right. Here we go. So here's how you enable, I think it's just that. I'm going to cheat real quick. I'm sorry. This is not as put together as well as last week. This is a little more informal, let's say. Composite component. This is the current one. So let me just, everybody close your eyes real fast. And, oh, look at that. Yep, that's totally how we do the snapshotting. Hey, Cody.
Hey, Cody.
Demo gods are here in full force.
Yeah. They totally are.
As long as nobody says, imagine if you will.
Yeah. Did say that.
Did see
Now it's immutable. I just came for pizza. You know, I was just going to sneak in the back, but
It looks like Gabe's at the door.
Oh.
You want to go get?
have we tricked anybody else into coming back to LBT yet?
I'll go.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
There's
Okay.
a plate on the shelf right
Plates on
there.
the shelf.
Oh, thank you, guys. Sorry, I'm just a pain. I slow everything down.
It's all good. All good. Okay, yeah, so to enable the persistent snapshotting in the entity store, I used to think it was just this one line. It turns out there's more to it. We'll actually go through and do that more to it. But you just put on the entity store, hey, let's enable snapshotting, and here's the class that will do it. And so that class implements writing a snapshot to message DB. When we see it, you'll see a stream name with a snapshot type modifier in its category. And it just, we'll put them in there at that point. And to your question, Swapna, everybody close your eyes again real quick. Oh, there it is. There's this interval key, and whatever number you put there is the number of messages after which it will do a snapshot. I think by default it's 1,000. So that speaks to like the fear of the inefficiency. In practice isn't that big of a deal because most streams don't get that large. But for the exceptional ones, it's nice to have that ability to snapshot. And here's what we're going to set it to for our experiment tonight, because we need to trigger the problem that Aaron was talking about. And so we don't have 1,000 messages to do that with. So we're going to snapshot after 2 messages and see what happens.
So can you have your own custom location for the snapshot?
You
to be
can.
stored in
Absolutely.
some file system, S3 bucket or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
To do that, you would have to implement a class that conforms to the same interface. But yeah, Redis has popped up as one. I might do that on the stream because that's an interesting thing. How could we store the snapshots in a different location?
Yes.
And retrieve them? But of course, Redis is infrastructure, et cetera, And so the default one of just going to the message store is nice from a simplicity standpoint,
Right.
but,
I was thinking more from a backup solution perspective.
okay,
That backup is snapshots, some other location.
Yeah.
not in your database.
yeah. But maybe the speed of retrieving it from a very large message store is less desirable. That I don't know if Redis would be any faster, but that's the, like, I obviously like Eventide. I'm not shy about that, but it's reasons like this. It really lets you plug in to various
Different
places.
components.
Anyway, so I used to think that's all there was to it. There's a little bit more to make a snapshot actually happen. And we can demonstrate that by causing things to crash real quick. So I'm going to start these two wonderful components from last week. That was the message store.
I found two of them.
Two of them. Gabe,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
We can,
So let's make some room.
yeah.
So one of those chairs you want me to be careful with. Which chair's better back here?
We don't know which one it is.
Gabe, why don't you come over here and jump in here?
I'm okay, as long as we know which one I don't have to be careful with.
Yeah, that one looks suspicious.
Well, this one feels more suspicious.
This one's good.
We'll play it by ear.
Okay.
All right, we inherited the chairs when we moved in, but we're moving again, so we don't want to buy any more furniture for the place, so.
Thanks for interrupting.
Just hanging on with what we have.
So Gabe, to give you context, last time we had an example of the totally hypothetical example of supposing you had a fleet of cellularly connected IoT devices that could record videos, and you wanted to retrieve those videos and stitch them together into a longer one, like take 10 minutes from this camera and put them together. So we have two components mimicking that. And so what I'm doing is starting both of those components, and I'll write a command to have them do their thing. And what I think is going to happen, and I haven't been by starting sentences like that at this close meetup, I expect to see a crash over here on the left because there is another piece to snapshotting besides just that one line in Eventide.
Did I hear MQTT as you were chatting? Is that how these messages are getting up?
We're using a message store. Why am I having trouble finding it? We're using something called MessageDB, which is it's a table installed into Postgres with some server functions that gives us pub sub and durable storage capabilities.
Thanks for catching me up.
You bet, you bet. So let's go ahead and run that. Boom, that's what I wanted to see. Who wants to see a crash? Well, I did.
This is like NASCAR.
Yeah. Vroom, vroom. Okay.
Good thing I'm not driving right now.
So, the error that we have here, transform error, composite component composite, doesn't have a transform namespace that implements the transformation protocol. We have to implement that on our composite class. So let's go have a peek at the message store real quick. We can see a number of messages got written there. I love this program, but it does not follow the standard Mac command plus to make the text bigger. So apologies to everyone. We have a mixture of messages in here, some for the composite component, like there's its initiated event, and then these are all in device video. So we got that first retrieved event that we're going to listen to. And so the composite component went to project its composite. It found two events, and it's like, oh, my snapshot interval is 2. It's time for me to write a snapshot. At which point it crashed because the entity doesn't implement the protocol to do that. So we also have to implement that protocol to make snapshots work. It's not hard. Protocol sounds like it's a big deal, but it's pretty straightforward. So if we were to look at the examples in Eventide, we would come down to our entity and we would add a module transform. And there are two methods that we have to implement. They are instance, and by convention, we'd call that parameter raw data, which is given the raw data of the snapshot, give me a hydrated, I hate that word, but give me an instantiated instance of the entity. So it's the deserialization side of it. And then you could probably guess then the other one. Given an instance, tell me how you want me to store that in the message store or in whatever snapshot mechanism that you have. And so in the docs, what it will say is if your instance, I'm going to jump to the top of this file real quick, uses the schema data structure module from within Eventide, it has provided a very easy mechanism to do this for you. And that mechanism is to call instance.toH to a hash. Just take it, make a hash. Everything that's listed as an attribute will appear in that hash. Send that off to the message store. And then also, if you then want to get an instance of the class, we can just say, because we're in the composite class, we can just build one of those from raw data, like so. And in theory, that's all there is to it. I've got to go intentionally make the code function incorrectly real quick. Trying to remember where to do that. Here we go. So if we go to handlers, events, and it's in our retrieved event handler, after we've done the idempotence check, I want to put an exit statement right there so that we don't go and actually build the composite. Something happened right there and we crash. We need to simulate that. Why did you, oh right, because we haven't run that again. Just for clarity, I'm going to blow away the message store again and restart both components. And we can start that one, and then we can start that one. And we're going to rerun that command. Oh, why did this crash again? That's embarrassing. Let's come up here. Oh, because the message store wasn't ready yet. Okay, I can buy that. Have to have it running. Oh, that one though I can't buy. Why did that happen? Does not implement raw data. Did I type something? Oh, shoot, I backgrounded. Sorry about that, I struggle with Teams sometimes. Def, oh, my bad. This is, I think, supposed to be self.instance. You don't call it on a particular instance of anything. I'm almost positive that's probably the problem. And I'm going to restart this as well, just to keep a clean message store. So I'll restart that, let it finish. Chatty, isn't it? Let it time out. Okay, there we go. Resizing and switching panes here in my tmux setup uses the same key combination. All right, there's that. Let's go ahead and write our command. Okay, it exited because it hit the exit statement. It didn't crash. That's good. That's what we want to see. So now we expect to see some snapshots in here, right? Look at that. We've got a recorded event. This is good. That's a snapshot occurring right there. There's some problems that, given the little text, may not be readily apparent. First of all, check out this source URIs member on here. Now this one is declared as an attribute. Its value is pound less than collection : array : 0 x bunch of zeros 1102 b4290.
Quick, go to that address in memory, see if you can find it again.
Yeah, exactly. As the one who wrote this code, I can assure you that is not what one of our URIs looks like. So something is wrong there. But then also, and here's the part that Aaron specifically pointed out last time, there is a really critical variable on this class, this retrieved minutes array. That is how we tell if we retrieved all of the things or not. If we come back to here, even if you're close to the text such that it's legible, you will not find a retrieved minutes member in this snapshot.
Why is it showing your switcher still?
Oh, because, why is it showing that?
That was just weird.
That was really weird. Huh. Not because of my code. But yeah, so that array that is so critical to the idempotence of this component didn't even make it in, not even in an incorrect state, like the source URIs. And that is exactly because of what Aaron said. So if we come back, retrieved minutes is defined right here. You call this method, we see, do we already have that defined? If so, we'll return it. Otherwise, we will initialize it as an empty array. And this array here is what we're shoving the start minute strings into. And that's how we tell, have we retrieved every video? We check all of our minutes and see, are they all in that array? But it didn't make it into the snapshot, which means that if we reconstitute from a snapshot, which we will because it's there, so I thought it would just never get to completion. Kind of gave away that that's not what it is, but I got it wrong too. So if the answer doesn't come immediately to you, don't feel bad. I just want to give the chance though, set the scenario and what do you think the symptom of it not being in there will be? The array is used to tell, have we retrieved all of our videos? And if we need to retrieve them again.
It'll rerun messages, yeah?
That's what I remember happening. It ends up not being idempotent. So let's see, shall we? We know it's not going to work properly, but I did actually run this at one point, but okay, I'm leaving the exit one in place. That's intentional. We know that we already have the problem that the extra retrieve commands will be sent because the snapshotting won't address that. That's something later. And we won't even talk about that today. If you remember from last time, let me just show it real quick, just to refresh memories, or not refresh, but introduce for the first time. In our initiated handler, which I can't, let me come, oh, do I? 1 second, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I want to pull up a different web browser thing and who knows what will be on there. My email box is what will be on there. Where's Drive? Would I have this up online? I have a diagram that, here we go, it's this one right here. I'm gonna close that, not close it, but minimize it and minimize. Nope, that was the one I wanted to keep. And let's see, minimize you, there we go, okay. There's that, and then come back to the screen and share. So here's our loosely inspired by event modeling diagram. We get an initiated event, and from there, we need to send retrieve commands down to the device video component. And when we do that in this version of the code, we just are always going to send those. We don't check to see if we've already retrieved it. So those duplicate messages, even when we fix the snapshotting, will still occur. But let's see what happens to the snapshot stuff real quick. Oh, we got a big error. What happened?
Whoa.
Actually, pretty sure I know what this thing is. Yeah, look at that. So what is this saying? Let's go back to the code just real fast.
It's trying to reconstitute it and going, what the heck is that?
Exactly. So it's a problem with the source URI's attribute, which we had said is a collection array, which comes from Eventide. It lets us say, here's an array. We expect all of its members to be of this type. And so we do that with this default value over here of a new one and passing it string. We go back to the message store and look at source URIs. That, if you've done programming in Ruby for like longer than 20 minutes, you know if you just toString any random object that doesn't define what toString means, you get something that looks like that. So when he said, oh, quick, go to that address in memory, that's what it's showing. It's this class and here's its memory address. But that's a string, not an array of strings. And furthermore, not a collection array of type string. And so when we are in our deserialization here, this one, given the raw data, we need to give an instance. That doesn't work. We have a type mismatch there. So there's like two problems with the composite as we had it from last week. One is the retrieved minutes, which we'll deal with in just a minute. This one is that the collection array doesn't work correctly with the toHash method here, the toH. So we can fix that, but to do it right, we're going to do what is our privilege in a development environment and just blow away the message store again. Don't do that in production. Can't recommend
Killjoy.
that. Yeah, so in our raw data here, given the instance, I don't know, you guys want to mob through it, or do you want me to just do what I think will work and watch me? I think it'd be more exciting if we talk through it, but
We should talk through it.
let's talk through it. Okay. So this instance that's coming in is one of our entity classes, and we need to produce a hash whose keys are symbols and whose values are the actual things that we want to persist. And so what happened to us here is that they're on our, this is kind of giving away part of it. Suppose that we had stored raw data here. There would be a key in there called source URIs, and its value would be that selection, right? But we don't want it to be that. So what could we do instead?
Just give up. It's hopeless.
That is an option. We've already got some pizza in us. So, I mean, it's a good night already. But
I can't do arrays serialized correctly.
regular arrays do, provided that their content is not something that doesn't.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So I imagine we could convert it to an array, right? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know how to do that, I looked it up. On our instance, we have a source URIs member that has a content method on it that will give us back an array. And then from there, of course, we would want to, I totally didn't do that in development one day. And so that we just handed back just that arrays thing. Who would do that? So
Definitely not.
put that right there. That makes sense. So the source URIs member on there is a type checking collection class that doesn't know yet how to serialize itself. So what we can do is just grab the underlying array inside of it and just have a raw array there instead. And so we override the source URIs member and set it to that array and then just return that raw data. And let's go ahead and see the result. I would normally do this with tests, but don't have them, and whatever. It's the way it is tonight. We can run that. We exited safely over there. Let's go back to our message store, have a look at that snapshot, and lo and behold, check out that source URIs member now.
Brings a tear to my eye.
It has URIs.
Dun, dun,
Dun, dun, dun. Yes, exactly. So now when we restart this component, we won't crash because of that. We will crash because of that. Because
Crash not because of that, something else.
He'll try and assign it to a collection array and it won't work.
exactly, because an array of strings is not the same as a collection array that expects type string.
That's true.
So, no problem. We can fix that, right? How would you do that? So this raw data number on it here has a source URIs key in it whose value is an array of URL strings.
We need to convert back.
What was that?
We need to convert back to.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And you'd think I'd remember how to do this because it's probably really simple, but
Just do the collection array dot build and
I
pass it.
think that's what it is.
The
It will work.
source
You can
URL.
also just do collection : array with a parenthesis as a
that too.
class
That works
method
too. Yep,
and pass in the data, and I think that also works.
Let's try it.
that's the constructor, right?
Like that you're saying?
Uh-huh.
And pass it,
The raw data source URIs.
The actual array, yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
It
Curly
should,
brace.
it should plug
Oh,
off
what
the
did I do?
type from the first one, as long as this
Oh.
is not empty. If the array is empty, it might error out in this case, but the
Because it
dot
wouldn't
build,
know
I
the
think,
type it's supposed to be.
The
The
dot
build would
build.
work, except it wouldn't be of a
you have
string.
to
You have to
specify the
specify
type
string.
using the square brackets.
Yeah, so you can specify the type of the collection
Oh.
by putting square brackets.
Square brackets like that,
Uh-huh,
Uh-huh.
calling build.
and then dot build,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
that would work, I believe,
well, let's see if it does.
even if it was empty, I
Oops.
should clarify.
All right, so I'm gonna restart this. I think it'll not crash. It'll hit that exit one again, and we're going to see duplicate messages. That's what I think is gonna happen because the retrieved URL or retrieve minutes thing is still not even included in there at all. So far, so good.
Did exit, sweet.
Let's go back to the message store. These we expect to see. You can see we've retrieved these messages because we handled the retrieved from device video. And then we say, hey, self, have we already retrieved this? Well, no, because it never made it into the snapshot because we didn't reproject the entire string. We started from the snapshot. And so, hey, here's another recorded that has even more source URIs in it because
Why not?
we retrieved them. Essentially.
We don't have our idempotence check.
Exactly. The idempotence check is broken because the snapshot didn't collect the data we actually used to do the idempotence check. I'm so glad Aaron made that comment last time because this was such a fun rabbit hole to go into to like, oh, actually know how this mechanism works. Okay, great. So what's missing then is the retrieved minutes. And I did this two different ways. You don't end up having to declare everything as an attribute on the class. You just have to implement your serialization and deserialization. So we could, on the raw data one, just be like, hey, retrieve minutes. We're going to set you equal to the instance that retrieve. Spelling, thank you. That's why I like group work. I spend so much time solo coding, commenting how ridiculous it is that these programming languages require you to spell correctly. So we could do that. The deserialization for it, we'd basically have to be like retrieved minutes equals, oh, can I remember how to do this in Ruby? Raw data dot delete retrieved minutes. It'll remove it from the hash and then return what the value was. And then we would need to get our instance like so, and then be like instance dot retrieved minutes equals retrieved minutes. So
Pass the instance.
Return the instance.
Right, sorry, that's what I meant when I said pass.
you're absolutely right. And then additionally, we would need to do adder accessor retrieved minutes, and then in our retrieved minutes method, instead of doing that, do self dot retrieve minutes or equals that. Something like that. That doesn't seem right. Anyway, I didn't end up doing it this way, but what the point that I wanted to illustrate with that is you can store the data however you want on the class, provided you are consistent with those two methods. So you could make something up that's not even on the class and persist it in there and then do something with it when you get it back.
Because of that, you don't have to have any attributes.
Yeah.
Attributes. You don't have to include schema data structure.
You don't.
You could just do the serialization and deserialization.
Mm-hmm. That's something I've heard. It's either the documentation or it's gotten like if you don't want your entity class to be a schema data structure, don't make it one. I don't know what would compel you to do that. Maybe there's a reason, but the only thing that the snapshotting bit of the framework will require you to have is that module on whatever the entity class is with those two methods present on there.
And is that module independent of where the snapshots are stored? Like say you wrote a Redis implementation, that just works with.
It would, yeah. Okay. Exactly. The only possible thing I would say to look out for in that case potentially is what is the raw data that you get handed back. It gets just stuffed into the message. And well, that's the same message is a function of it being in the message store. So if you put it in Redis, it would be whatever data structure, the class that you write. So let's go back to the entity store real quick. Whatever you implemented here is going to return something when the framework says, okay, get the snapshot. And whatever your class returns is what will get handed to these methods. I think, having not done it, I'm not sure, but that's what I would guess.
Hopefully there's some contract that's standard across things.
If you just stick with the, make it a hash in both directions, then yeah, you could swap out your snapshotting mechanism and none of this code would need to change for it. The way that I ended up doing this was I added retrieved minutes as a collection array attribute up here. So we'd get rid of that. We would then be able to get rid of this method and then come down here and basically duplicate what this is doing. Retrieve minutes equals a collection array string build from the, sorry, I'm getting caught up like with the size of the text, we lose a lot of real estate. So I'm like, should I have split this horizontally? But whatever. Get rid of that. This can then just become the simple build again. We don't need to explicitly return something. And then this one would end up being retrieved minutes.content because it's now also one of those. And was there code that needed to change? I don't think you push to a collection array, it's an add. And it didn't have find either, so I think.
I thought it had find.
Does it?
Yeah, I know it also has the shove, because that's what I use all the time.
Shove? Is it really?
The arrow.
Oh, okay. It's like, I would love it if there's.
I call it the shove operator.
It shoves it in.
Where's.
Those two?
Like this C++ C out type thing, like that.
Someone play some hold music real quick while I cheat and look up something. No, let's see the code in that state. How do you do that? Is this it? Browse directory. Composite. Push. We push it. Wait, is this? Oh, sorry, this is the wrong. I'm sorry. This is all entity attributes are attributes. That's what I wanted right there. It's this one. Composite and then add. Find is on there. You're absolutely right. So add and find. Okay, so now again we have a bad one in there. So the way you deal with the bad message in a production system is you delete the message. Oh, I like dark humor. Go ahead and run that. We get our exit. Are you ready? Just Sunday. Retrieved minutes. Look at that. We've got all of our retrieved minutes. 1 URL, 2 URL, 3 URLs. That's what we want to see. And now let us finally come to this grand moment where we remove our exit one. Oh, I'm so glad there are people who weren't here last week because we get to show something again. so excited for new blood. I will need to reshare my screen and enable sound sharing. There's our output saying that ffmpeg worked. And I don't quite remember where it puts things. Is it right here? It doesn't appear to be that. Well, here, this is a message we have in the message store. We do get those duplicate retrieves because, again, that's a separate issue. But notice we didn't get any extra retrieves in the past tense. We have all of these snapshots that look correct. And then we just come right down here and grab whatever this is. And you might be wondering, what on earth were our cellularly connected IoT devices capturing? What could it be?
It's a mystery to all.
Wait, where did it? That's what. Yeah, anyway. So we actually built that in the directory. There are 3 10-second clips from this song, and then it stitched them together. But yeah.
We didn't even get into the next video then, because we're only at 9 seconds.
Oh, yeah. You'll see a slight artifact, and when I split the original one, it's going to stutter just a little bit. Right there. That's the stutter.
Oh, gotcha.
Unacceptable.
Nicely done, though.
It just proves that you did it. That's what it does.
Yeah.
Here's the next one. Yep, there it is. Nice. Come on, Nadeem. You know this song.
Anyway, that's all I got, but questions, discussion, is that helpful to know how to implement the snapshotting?
I have questions that I think I will wait till everybody else asks theirs, because these are probably things that I missed out on that you'd already brought up.
Okay, fair.
All right, so you set your snapshot at 2.
That's right.
Okay, so we should have, the snapshot should have 2, and then you're just projecting the third.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. With the number of messages that we had, we did get a few more. We're looking for recorded. So that was the first one. Then we got 2 more retrieved messages, meaning, hey, we've got the clip, so we got 1 more in the snapshot there. So when this stream gets projected again, it will start from that result and then project onto it just this build event.
Hey,
or built event.
Do you by chance have Aaron's
the viewer?
The viewer, the
I
message?
do not.
I mean, it is no
He did that last
source.
time.
It's just
Oh, that's what I'm about to ask. Is there any place that we can view these snapshots?
you can download it, run it using Yarn.
Letitia, you were going to say something?
Yeah, the viewer that he demoed, you can go to his GitHub and download and run it.
Oh, message DB viewer.
I think it's a React app. It's been a bit since I've looked at it.
Is this the right Aaron Jensen here?
Yep, that's him.
Okay.
That looks like him.
That's it.
All right. I've never run this before, so.
There's some destructions in the README.
Destructions, you said? Just want to make sure I heard you
Beware,
correctly.
your own risk.
Okay, in the README, you say.
Yeah, I think it's something like, depending if you use Yarn or, there you go. npm install and then npm run dev or yarn install run. And then
Okay.
Yarn dev.
Oh, you might need to change your the settings file. It follows a similar thing as
Okay.
Eventide.
So, and I'm pretty sure I'm running on 5432, but I will double check that real quick. 5433, I am not running on there, so. Let's open you real quick and change you. Thank you, Letitia, for saying where that was. To address all issues. Oh, that's just vulnerabilities. That doesn't matter.
Who cares about that?
Security is InfoSec's job. I don't really believe that. Just shift left, npm run dev.
And I think it comes out on 5555 or something like that.
Hot dang, look at that. So
Add message.
we can add all of the streams.
There's the snapshot stream that was there. I was curious if it.
Yeah, there's a snapshot stream.
Yeah, I think you can click on those too, by the way.
And see what they have. Look at that.
Oh, nice.
Truncated there, that's fine. Right, so in my mind, I'm like, oh, why is there no causation data? Because it doesn't have it. It makes no sense. It's caused by however many there are per interval.
But you could look and see, which one were you snapshotting? I forget.
The composite.
So you can see there's 5 and we have 2.
Yep. So if we had had one more in there.
Turns out it works.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I love this thing.
I know. It's freaking cool.
Isn't it?
That is.
Did Aaron make that?
He did.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It's a next app, which I guess is a derivative of React, but just to correct my earlier statement.
And if I'm not mistaken, it goes after like the most recent 25 streams or something. So it's not by default across the entire message store, but
This is something you'd be using in like development to verify things look right.
But the arrows show you the causation trail, so you know why certain messages came to be. Like from here, you can follow all of this happened because of this one message. So, yeah. Good suggestion. Anything else? Totally don't recommend an interval of 2.
I'm gonna tell everyone on Twitter that's what you said.
Yeah.
Recommend an interval of 2.
So-called person who knows anything, Ethan.
The author.
Yeah, so the interval there, I'm thinking your question, Zach, about if you implemented a different snapshotting mechanism, I think the interval would still be controlled by the framework. So that tells the framework when to call the mechanism, so.
Yep, that's best in the
I believe that is
snapshot.
correct.
Okay. So I guess to summarize, snapshots are a performance improvement thing, a caching mechanism that work real well because we don't let the underlying data change. If broke that rule, or again, remember it's the particular projection plus the data that is snapshotted. So a different projection, you would want to make sure is not trying to put its snapshots into the same stream. And if we came in here and we changed this projection class, I would say go invalidate your snap, go just delete them. You can delete snapshot messages without breaking the architecture. They're unlike the actual transactional events that you're recording. But, so if you change that, I would say you're just invalidating the cache, so bust it and, I think by the time you would notice that snapshotting would be useful for a given stream, the component's probably pretty hardened at that point to where it wouldn't be changing a lot. That is pure speculation, so.
I would make a similar assumption. And it's worth noting, you probably don't want to start with snapshotting. You probably might have said that, I just didn't hear it, but it's not something you really want to just turn on by default. You probably want to wait till you need it.
The in-memory one is fine. You can't turn it off anyway.
Right.
But that only persists as long as the component is running. So if you change the code, you redeploy, component's no longer running until it is, and then you don't get the stale issue.
Are there any good practices or strategies to see how you can define or how you should define these snapshots?
So like the actual transform functions to do it?
Yeah, when to do it, basically.
Or when to do snapshotting
When to
at all.
start when to enable snapshotting on this.
2 jobs ago, we put some logging messages in the equivalent we had of the fetching thing, and we were going to set up an alert when that starts taking an acceptable length of time. Like, okay, let's implement snapshotting. At that place, we weren't using Eventide. We were using a derivative of my books code, and so it would actually have been some more implementation work in the library itself to enable that. So that's what I would look to is
It's more like a performance tuning.
It is, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I think that Eventide from within the entity store has enough logging statements that if you tuned the log tags and log levels appropriately, you could start getting an idea of how many messages went into it. Worst case scenario, you could look through the message, find the max position in the message store. And if you see here's that global position, but the actual position column, this one's at a million. What the heck stream is that? Find the component, look at other streams for that component. All of the streams from this component have a lot of messages in them. That could be a signal. Let's start implementing this. If you notice things going slow, that might be a trigger to go look at that component's messages as well to find out.
Cool.
The operational questions, I think, are fascinating ones. So that's a good one.
Piece of pizza for you.
Yeah.
Already ate, I shouldn't have.
Sorry, let me just say one last thing. As I look over the group that's here today, you came for the first time, that's fine, but most of you have been here since the beginning, coming very regularly. And That's touching to me. I think that's awesome. The consistency that we have there. I really appreciate that. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to 2023 to keep doing it.